Do you know how far governments have gone in the name of national security? Have you ever wondered what kind of unbelievable experiments militaries have conducted behind closed doors? Throughout history, nations have pushed the boundaries of science and ethics, testing everything from mind control techniques to bioengineered super soldiers. Some of these experiments sound like science fiction, missiles guided by pigeons, or aircraft carriers floating in the sky. Others were far more sinister, chemical warfare, and psychological manipulation. But why did these projects exist? And what were they trying to achieve? Today, we're diving into some of the most insane military experiments in history. Stay tuned and watch this video till end. Number 1. The U.S. Camel Corps. In the mid-19th century, the U.S. Army sought a solution to navigating the arid landscapes of the American Southwest. Secretary of War Jefferson Davis spearheaded the U.S. Camel Corps in 1856, importing camels from North Africa and Turkey. The animals were chosen for their resilience, requiring little water and carrying heavy loads across rugged terrain. Early trials proved successful, with camels outperforming horses and mules. However, despite their advantages, the experiment was short-lived. The outbreak of the Civil War shifted military priorities, and with Davis leading the Confederacy, federal support for the project collapsed. The Army abandoned the camel units, selling some to circuses and private owners, while others were released into the wild. Sightings of feral camels persisted into the 20th century, adding a layer of mystery to their legacy. Though ultimately deemed impractical, the Camel Corps stands as one of the most unusual attempts to revolutionize military logistics in U.S. history. Number 2. Project Iceworm. During the Cold War, the U.S. Army devised a secret plan to place nuclear missiles beneath Greenland's ice sheets, allowing them to strike the Soviet Union from an unpredictable location. Launched in 1958, Project Iceworm aimed to construct a vast network of tunnels capable of housing hundreds of ballistic missiles. To test feasibility, the Army built Camp Century, a prototype underground base powered by a portable nuclear reactor. The facility included living quarters, laboratories, and storage areas, all hidden beneath the Arctic ice. However, nature proved a formidable adversary. The shifting ice made structures unstable, rendering the project impractical. By 1966, the Army abandoned the initiative, leaving behind a Cold War relic now buried beneath layers of ice. In recent years, climate change has raised concerns about the release of buried waste from the project. Despite its failure, Project Iceworm remains one of the most ambitious and bizarre attempts to weaponize the Arctic during the nuclear arms race. Number 3. The FP-45 Liberator. As World War II raged, the U.S. sought ways to arm resistance fighters in Axis-occupied territories. The result was the FP-45 Liberator, a crude single-shot .45 caliber pistol designed for mass production and easy distribution. Manufactured in just 6 seconds per unit, over 1 million were produced between June and August 1942. The idea was simple. Resistance fighters would use the pistol to assassinate enemy troops and seize their weapons. However, the concept failed to gain traction. The gun was unreliable, slow to reload, and difficult to aim. Intelligence officers deemed it ineffective, favoring more practical weapons like the British Sten submachine gun. Although some FP-45s were sent to the Pacific Theater, their actual usage remains unclear. Most were destroyed or left in storage after the war. Today, surviving Liberators are rare collector's items, fetching high prices at auctions. While innovative in theory, the FP-45 remains a forgotten footnote in military history. Number 4. Project Pigeon. During World War II, famed behaviorist B.F. Skinner proposed an unusual method of guiding missiles, using trained pigeons. Dubbed Project Pigeon, the concept involved placing pigeons inside the nose cone of a bomb, where they would peck at a screen displaying an image of the target. The birds, trained through positive reinforcement, would adjust the missile's trajectory by pecking in the correct direction. The U.S. military funded initial research, intrigued by the potential for an accurate, self-guided weapon without electronic interference. However, the project faced skepticism. Despite successful tests proving pigeons could reliably track moving targets, military officials were unwilling to entrust crucial wartime technology to birds. By 1944, Project Pigeon was shelved in favor of emerging electronic guidance systems. Though ultimately abandoned, Skinner's work demonstrated early principles of behavioral conditioning in military applications. The idea resurfaced briefly during the Cold War, but was never fully realized, remaining one of the most bizarre experiments in military history. Number 5. Aircraft carriers. In the early 20th century, the U.S. military sought ways to extend the range of its fighter aircraft. The result was the flying aircraft carrier, an ambitious concept where massive airships would serve as airborne bases, launching and retrieving smaller planes mid-flight. The U.S. Navy experimented with this idea during the 1930s, constructing the USS Akron and USS Macon, two rigid airships equipped with hangars and trap mechanisms for launching and recovering Curtiss F-9C Sparrowhawk fighters. These parasite fighters provided reconnaissance and defensive capabilities far beyond the airship's range. However, the program faced significant challenges. The airships were vulnerable to bad weather, and both the Akron and Macon were lost in fatal crashes. The idea resurfaced during the Cold War, with experiments involving bomber-launched aircraft, but advances in aerial refueling and long-range bombers rendered the concept obsolete. While flying aircraft carriers never became standard, they remain an intriguing footnote in aviation history. Number 6. The Edgewood Arsenal drug experiments. From 1955 to 1975, the U.S. Army conducted secret drug experiments on soldiers at Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland. The tests, part of Cold War research into chemical warfare, exposed thousands of military personnel to hallucinogens, nerve agents, and psychoactive drugs. Chemicals like LSD, BZ, a powerful deliriant, and nerve toxins were administered to study their effects on cognitive and physical performance. Many soldiers volunteered under misleading claims, unaware of the long-term risks. While the goal was to develop incapacitating agents for warfare, the experiments often resulted in severe psychological distress, memory loss, and lingering health issues. The program remained classified for decades until declassified documents and testimonies exposed the disturbing nature of the trials. Despite attempts to seek compensation, many affected soldiers struggled to gain recognition for their suffering. The Edgewood experiments highlight the ethical failures of Cold War-era military research, raising enduring concerns about human experimentation in national defense programs. Number 7. The Peacekeeper Rail Garrison. During the 1980s, the U.S. military sought ways to make its nuclear arsenal more mobile and less vulnerable to a Soviet first strike. The result was the Peacekeeper Rail Garrison, a system that would deploy LGM-118 Peacekeeper Intercontinental Ballistic Missiles ICBMs on reinforced train cars. The concept relied on disguising nuclear missile launchers within ordinary freight trains, allowing them to constantly move across the national rail network, making them difficult to track and destroy. Each train would carry 2 missiles and be supported by security and maintenance cars. Though the project received funding in 1986, the Cold War ended before it was fully implemented. By 1991, with arms reduction treaties and shifting defense priorities, the program was canceled. The idea of mobile nuclear launch platforms persisted, with Russia later developing its own version, but the U.S. abandoned rail-based deterrence in favor of land-based silos and submarine-launched missiles. The Peacekeeper Rail Garrison remains a relic of Cold War nuclear strategy. That's all for this video. Subscribe to us, thanks.